Glad to have you here on Morning After, everybody. We are bringing in a friend of the show, Jennifer Hargrave. She's a board-certified family law attorney. And the discussion topic this morning is pets and divorce. I have to say, Jennifer, this is one that I hadn't thought about before, but it really does make sense that this is a discussion to have.
Absolutely. I mean, pets come up often in divorce, especially when we have children and the children are attached to the pets. But it's important to know in the state of Texas that pets are treated like property. So that's oftentimes a surprise to people that their beloved Fido or Fifi is just a piece of property. So,
oh my gosh. Well, and I saw that one of the matrimonial lawyer academies reports a 65% increase in just divorce business in general. And then we couple that with everybody got a dog during the pandemic. It was like everybody, people who had never been dog owners before, people who had never considered it before, all of a sudden they have pets, which I thought was such a beautiful thing. But now it's like such an increase in figuring out what do we do with it.
Exactly. It could be one more thing for people to argue over. And it's important to have those conversations. If you're going into marriage and you have a pet, talk about that before you get married. If you're in a marriage and you're talking about divorce, I think be realistic. Conflict over pets can get really expensive, especially the more intricate and detailed the arrangements are. So it's just something for people to be aware of. Right,
like you're paying by the hour for somebody to negotiate this pet situation. Does somebody ever do a shared agreement where they say, you get, every other weekend and I get the rest or something like that?
Yeah, we do come up with those kinds of agreements from time to time. And so we can address issues of possession, what the possession schedule is. But it's also important to address cost. I mean, pets can get really expensive. And so who's going to pay for boarding? Who's going to pay for the vet bills? Who makes decisions? If your dog gets cancer and one of you wants to, undergo the expensive treatment and the other one doesn't, who has the right? So these issues can get really complex. And it's important to think about it and, maybe talk about really whether getting another pet is going to be a way to resolve the issue.
Do you? No, Jennifer, because they're irreplaceable. That will not work. I don't care who you are. It will not work. Do you think that pets will ever be considered more than just property, where it would be more of an instance like a child?
We do see, I know there are other jurisdictions where pets have more rights. And even in the state of Texas, pets can be included in a protective order. They can be protected. So it is, there is sort of an expansion there. My only caution is that, again, this can be one more thing to argue over and it just can increase the conflict. So, we need to, be smart about what we decide to argue over. And sometimes it's worth it. So I'm not going to make that judgment. People want to argue over it. They certainly can. But
do you, for couples that are interested in getting a prenuptial agreement, or if that's something that they do or believe in, do you think that pets should be a part of that pre-marriage plan?
I think it's a good thing to talk about. Before you get married, do you want to have pets? Are you a cat person? Are you a dog person? Kind of have those conversations ahead of time. If you have a pet and you're going into the marriage, generally speaking, that pet will be your pet. It's, separate properties. If the marriage fails, that'll be your pet. But you need to have a common understanding as to how much money is going to be spent on the pet. Pets can get super expensive and people don't always agree. So if you're doing a premarital agreement, that is one thing that you might want to address as part of your premarital discussions.
I'm not super familiar with how they work. So, but if somebody already had, let's say they had a prenup, then they get married, then they get a dog or a cat, then can they go back and add it to their prenup?
It will follow kind of what the premarital agreement says. So some premarital agreements say there's going to be no community property, in which case whoever paid for the pet is basically going to have the pet. If they decide there is going to be community property, then we would divide the pet like we divide other assets. But you can see the challenge there. Awfully hard to value a pet.
Okay. You're talking about if couples don't combine finances ever. They get married but don't ever combine finances.
If they get married and they've decided that they're not going to combine finances and there's not going to be any community property and it's just going to be, his separate property and her separate property, then, whoever purchased the pet, whoever paid for the pet, basically you can expect that person's going to have the pet.
That makes sense. Do couples do that very often, keep their finances completely separate throughout the marriage?
Well, I mean, we do see that. Certainly, if somebody's coming into the marriage, this is a second marriage, or they have a large family estate, yes, we do see premarital agreements happen. And I think it could be a really constructive part of the discussion that you have before you get married.
Interesting. Jennifer Hargrave, we didn't have that talk before we got married, so I hope Charlie's in good hands. Good to chat with you. Thank you, as always, for all the information. You guys, if you're looking for somebody, she is hargravefamilylaw.com, and you can find her on social media at divorce DFW, so like divorce DFW. The D is a double usage potentially on that one.